Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements Radio, live today on Thursday, May 12th already. Well, this year's just flying by. I hope it's not too loud. Please send me a message. Let me know if it is. I have the window open, so there's a lot going on in my street this week. Construction and, I don't know, other apocalyptic events. I hope you guys are doing well today. We have a lot of news. Because we're deep into the sixth extinction, and I wonder a lot if that should be... Oh, thank you, Tudok. He says I sound fine. I wonder a lot if that should be the only thing I speak of. Because nothing else matters, really, if everything's dead. I have a lot of news articles today about the planet and what's going on my page. Something that we had talked about over and over again, as a matter of fact: parthenogenesis, virgin birth, Pandora's box. There are still creatures on this planet that are the ancients. Know that all the stories that we tell and talk about, these things don't disappear. Transform, perhaps, but they never actually go. So the stories that we're telling are not just ancient, they are also now. These are the self-propelled beings that they talked about in ancient Kemet. These are the stories that they have told us about, that I've told you about. Females that produce from themselves. Some also have sex, and that's the transition. So everything happens at once. The science article calls them 10 amazing animals that clone themselves. We know there are plants that still do this. The oldest stand of trees looks like it did it, but they're very old. And mushrooms do it like this. They're the same being over and over and over again. I wanted to stay into that theme because I was thinking of all the stuff I wanted to tell you today, the news, and then take you to see the wizard. So I had a vision. You know that Two-Dog and I occasionally pull over all the shows and all my plans because of a vision. And I heard these words, that you don't have to straighten out the world. You are not here for this. You don't have to make peace. You don't have to teach people anything, show anyone anything. You are here in order to wake up, to awaken from this mortal dream. That's all you're here for. You're not here for any other reason. And then while I was sitting outside, I saw what? An apparition? Now, I don't support calling on any deities, of course. But when you see one, what are you going to do? So I saw a being. He had a name. His name was Juan. I laughed a little bit. Juan was a jinn. And I said, look, I don't have time for you right now. I'm going to be doing a show in a half hour. And I have plans, and there's the apocalypse and everything. He goes, don't worry, we'll be back in time. Enough time, as a matter of fact, so I could look up some of the stuff he said, because, I thought, oh good, I've lost my mind. So here's what he said. That he was a jinn. And that in ancient times people knew Now, this was before there's anyone studying Islam. This is before Muslims. This is the old religion, and you will find all over the world people know what jinn are. Different names for them, of course, but jinn. That even the people in the Middle East, and I don't want to insult them for their beliefs. I'm trying not to. I know that I do with Christians sometimes, but they're a little bit more open-minded. Do you know what I mean? They're open-minded, and they also realize on a deep personal level that their religion is a little fishy, as in Dagon or Dogon or Cthulhu. But hey, I always say, if you're going to worship something, go full evil. Anyway, so one, a jinn, is in charge of this area. He said that jinn is where we get the name genius. Look that up. Looks like he's right. Also, that at first they were known to be the Logos, the Ilu, the Netter, nature spirits in general. We have them all over the world. Wherever you're from, you have a thing that lives in the forest and takes care usually of a temple or a certain area or certain people. Sometimes they work directly with people, sometimes they hate them, so there's good and bad. It was a peaceful morning. I've had some physical problems lately. I don't like to talk about it much. It's very uncomfortable. People have been asking, and I'm grateful, of course, for your attention and your love. You guys are so supportive. There's not much that we can do. I'm sticking to all the rules and things that work for me anyway. But my body just shuts off. I don't know what that is. I don't know why. I can't tell you. I think for a lot of us, a very large group of us, that we are reacting to what's happening to this planet. We can't ignore it. Obviously. We're seeing people fight fires all over the world. Mass deaths all over the world. People dying all over the world. And quietly, without anyone, at least here, and we're supposed to be important or something. North Korea. They were warned that there is a famine coming. We haven't been warned this, except NASA keeps seemingly very determined to look at other planets for life. Like they've given up on this one. Our mother. Makes me very angry. And we had talked about this years ago, haven't we? That eventually they were going to ask us to forget our mother. That eventually the climate would change to such an extent that there would be climate change refugees. I don't have any other way to look at it. Of course, global corruption is They're not stopping. They're not afraid. I keep seeing, people keep giving me these articles of hope. And yes, hope. Work on yourselves. But we can't ignore what we see. Looking to the fairies or whatever the heck that was I saw isn't going to help either, because I also told you that things would be making contact. Everything on this planet wants to live. This is very, very true. Everything does, but we are seeing abusive relationship after abusive relationship for innocent Native Americans who have been jailed for 18 years have been set free, but only after agreeing not to sue or talk about this. Now they're from Fairbanks, Alaska. Completely innocent men. You can go home if you don't sue. Even though they admit it's a wrongful conviction, they admit there was unnecessary time behind bars, so they're admitting these guys did nothing, but they were going to keep them there. Now, even at the time of conviction, this case was extremely controversial. Many supporters of the four insisting they were innocent, family, supporters, have continued to fight over the years, collecting evidence of their innocence, pushing for a new trial, and as years went on, it was obvious that they were never going to be freed in the way they should be. These wrongfully convicted men the court forced them to agree that they would not sue the city or the state, even though they have every right to, losing many years of their adult lives in prison. This is not an exoneration. In this settlement, four defendants agreed that they were properly and validly investigated. This is what they had to sign. Prosecuted and convicted. Nevertheless, in the light of new evidence produced at a recent hearing, because they wouldn't rehear this case for 18 years, as an aside, that this settlement is just. This is a compromise, apparently, that reflects the Attorney General's recognition that if the defendants were retried today, it is not clear, under the current state of evidence, that they would be convicted. Land of the free. Braves are in jail, and if you want to read more about that, it's there. Canada is admitting that the relationship with Indigenous people has deteriorated over the past decade. Please. An abusive relationship will always be an abusive relationship. But how many fires do we need to see what's happening to our planet, to see things that are unfair? Oh, as a matter of fact, and yes, I'm trying to please everyone today. Had some people ask, can you do some news too? News, logos, mysticism. To me, it's all the same. We're fighting a war. And this is just the manifested part of it. We're fighting this in our bodies. I'm daily seeing this being fought in my body. So I get it both ways, I guess. So, again, Canada this time. A provincial police officer has been found not guilty of assault for the second time after an altercation in a jail cell left a First Nations man with broken bones in his face. This is the second time. Now a second trial was ordered after the Crown appealed 2013, finding of not guilty in this case. Wednesday, a judge ruled that this monster was somewhat terrified. He was afraid that he would be spit at, bitten, or kicked while attempting to search an intoxicated man who had his hands cuffed behind his back, so he beat him, threw him on a floor of cement. He said it was necessary. It was proportional. And he had another officer in the cell at the time. He gave evidence that he did not perceive an immediate threat, but after he was afraid for his own safety. He did have a cut on his eyebrow. But the man on the floor had a cut on his eyebrow, broken bones around his eye socket, which was dislocated. So he wasn't just thrown to the floor. And this is his second time that he was afraid of someone. Not enough? Go back to the States then. To Detroit. Now, a city collapsing and a city being restored at the same time. See, when I was telling you on Tuesday what's happening here, the duality, it's not just duality. It's two sides that should be working together that just aren't. They just aren't. So, in the States, Detroit specifically, in the late 80s, many people fled for the suburbs, part of a massive white flight, that's what they called it, that helped turn Detroit from a bustling city of 2 million into a city of under 700,000. Those who stuck it out became unwilling icons of the decline of the American empire. All up in your face. You shouldn't ignore it. This is your future if you live in the States. Actually, this is your future if you live on planet Earth. For the people who are off Earth right now, high five. So, it has been the subject of thousands of news articles, documents, books. Many people have recently come back. People of all colors, of course, that fled. And as a matter of fact, some have seen their fortunes rise as Detroit emerges from bankruptcy, attracts new businesses, infrastructures, and residents at rates not seen in decades. Living on the Windsor side of that city, I've seen the ups and the downs. As a matter of fact, in the early 80s, it was a lot of fun. I felt relatively safe. I used to go there to dance. Well, I was a little bit afraid of the black girls who hated me. But, that's a cultural thing, and I'm light-skinned, and I was hecka sexy at the time, so, there was a whole thing. But, after they saw me dance, sisters were in general okay. But anyway, we are seeing the strange things. Because the neighborhoods outside downtown core, residents earn an average of 25% less than the new core. Houses are crumbling. It looks like an evacuation zone. There are, surprisingly, 150,000 vacant or abandoned buildings. Some areas, just one or two houses keep an entire block from reverting to grassland. Boomtown, icon of a ruinous decline. To say these two Detroits coexist would be optimistic. But it is the image of our state right now, separated by as little as a city block. The new Detroit and the rest of Detroit feel like two completely different cities, physically close, far apart in everything else: education, income, outlook for the future, shade of skin. Recent news that a racial blockade was erected between a predominantly black outer neighborhood and the more opulent white suburb of Grosse Pointe is disturbing, but somehow not surprising. Detroiters may hate being a symbol for the planet, but this is what it is. Not just for the states, but for planet Earth, where there's been a confluence of public incentives and private investment, like Manhattan, like North Brooklyn, like Detroit, like Toronto, where there's some places booming. In the rest of Detroit, in the rest of the world, like in the rest of New York, the chasm between rich and poor is not fading. It is now epidemic. And of course, esoterically, there is white and there is black. Both are colors. Do you want to know the difference, the real difference? Put on a black shirt, go outside, have the sun hit you. This is telling you everything you know about the color difference. Everything you need to know. That's it. The only difference. They are the part of the color spectrum unspoken of. The chakras. These are the two hidden signs. So, what makes Detroit unique? I guess is the insistence that these pockets of wealth and whiteness, coolness. Now, this isn't about white people or black people. This is about the opposites that are being portrayed in your face. That sometimes and somehow these opposites will rescue a city. The economic czar, George Jackson, put it plainly when he said of, what are they calling it? Gentrification. Bring it on. And so the city has. Dan Gilbert, billionaire owner of Quicken Loans, bought more than 60 buildings downtown Detroit. and gets called everything from a missionary to a superhero, despite the fact that his company has been accused of, how do I say it nicely, aggressive sales practices. And Mike Ilitch, interesting name, owner of Little Caesars Pizza and 2 Detroit sports teams, has similarly bought up real estate on the cheap. These billionaires of Detroit, along with the leaders of car companies and the non-profits they fund, have used their influence to build billions of dollars worth of infrastructure. Detroit is just 138.7 square miles, larger than Boston, San Francisco, and Manhattan combined. But the vast majority of the new money has poured into the city, has pooled in 7.2 square miles of downtown. The riverfront has always been a magnet. It is a particular magnet. We have talked about the power of the Detroit River. The river that is full of bodies from people swimming over to escape the slavery of the States. The slavery of Detroit. The old slave markets, by the way, that used to sell white people. Oh yes. And much to my embarrassment, Mohawks were selling them. Of course, their own people were selling them, brought them over. Now, this is not the stories that I've been hearing about. It was kind of indentured. It's trying to make it sound less slavery. No, they could free themselves. They could not free themselves. Your people were dragged over here and sold to the white people who came over, of course, to later on take over. They didn't know, obviously, or maybe they did. And to the natives here who thought, well, this isn't going to be so bad. If we've seen anything by humans, we always somehow think that it won't happen to us. It always happens to us. So anyway, the landowners had been convinced recently to grant permanent easements, also a sweet name for it, to build a 5.5 mile walkable, bikeable strip along the water's edge. They're calling it a conservatory. And also help plan and fund this tiny little space. A bike path on a former rail line that used to sell slaves. And it connects the river to the Eastern Market and one of the largest farmers markets that used to be a slave market. So they're actually using the slave path to the slave market, but they're making it pretty. And it's one of the largest farmers markets in the U.S. It also was one of the largest slave markets in the U.S. And there's also the M1 rail, pitched as a commuter rail that would eventually stretch into Detroit's northern suburbs, but since whittled down to a 3.3 mile streetcar that for now connects only downtown and midtown. And I, in my humble opinion, say 3.3, no, they got their number, just like the other one, 5.5, which they said they were going to extend. They will never extend that. The numbers are too sweet. Infrastructure has actually spurred a real a real estate boom. Vacancy rates in the core are mostly under 5%, like magic. And the $2 billion of real estate that has been constructed or planned between 2010 and 2012, downtown rents are about $400 higher than a year ago, approaching $2 per square foot, the magic number. Developers see a threshold for new construction being profitable. Tech starts and startups are plentiful. Artists are being lured by cheap rent. Small manufacturers are moving in. Big companies are offered incentives for their young employees to live in the city center. Developers argue that it's just a matter of time before other neighborhoods too rise up. Folks want to move from zero to investable projects. You start with the best neighborhoods and you migrate to the most challenging or challenged neighborhoods. And there's a lot of evidence that this kind of trickle-down economics does work, but it is also how the takeover happens on a small scale and a large scale, with religions, with economics, with people, always. In New York, for example, as the average rents rise beyond $3,800 in Manhattan, nearly half the city's residents live near the poverty line. Could they live in Manhattan? Many people have lived in one of these challenged outer neighborhoods on the outer circle, and it's usually somehow in every city 6 miles east of downtown. Why 6 miles east? This, my darlings, is the land of Nod. This is where the people of Cain are exiled. This is where Cain was sent. Same story. Why is it always east? I don't know, but it seems to be there. The east side seems to be the bad side. That's where you put the bad people. This is where you put the brown people. Places that used to have everything, department stores, grocery stores, all that stuff, are now put to the edge. Now sewers back up. Now parks are locked. Now schools are closed. If we only had more repair dollars, people would stay. There's a lot of fighting just to keep it like this. This is how it's done. This is how it's done everywhere. Detroit has always been perfect example of the planet. I don't know why, but seems to be. And if you think that wasn't crazy enough for today's dose of horrifying news, the poultry industry comes up big. Now, according to a new report by Oxfam America, workers in poultry plants across the country are denied bathroom breaks. This is not China. This is not some African country that nobody cares about. No one cares about Africa. Don't pretend you do. People were soiling themselves because they couldn't get breaks. So now they're wearing diapers. Poultry workers stand shoulder to shoulder to shoulder on both sides of long conveyor belts. Most use scissors or knives in cold, damp, loud conditions. This is in Arkansas, North Carolina, and Delaware, and many other states. They're not permitted to leave the processing line to use the bathroom, so they're wearing diapers. These workers are humiliated, degraded, put at risk. Serious health issues, including urinary tract infections. I guess it's good that at least they're talking about it, because I didn't know this was happening here. But you know what? Unseen labor conditions trigger problems. Last year, when we talked about this, question arose whether restaurants in the United States were serving slave labor shrimp. Do you remember that? Let me remind you, in case you didn't hear that. Now, you may have never ordered shrimp cocktail again, because U.S. restaurant chains, first it was alleged, but I'm thinking it's true, serve shrimp produced with slave labor. Now, this is from an Associated Press report that gives horrific details of migrant workers being kept captive in shrimp sheds, forced to peel and devein tons of shrimp bound for the U.S. market. Now, the report paints a vivid picture of one factory located near Bangkok, where children work right next to adults. And I will reprint that article. Well, not print, but put it on the page, so you can go to traceelements.com and see it. Unfortunately, we expect this. But there must be transparency at all levels of the supply chain. But big poultry workers are literally peeing their pants so that Americans can have enough cheap chicken. It's hellish conditions facing workers. Hellish. And as a matter of fact, slave labor runs the food chain. Slave labor runs, well, the chain for your clothes, for the most part. Now, speaking of East, and I thought this was weird because, when I'm talking about usually the bad side of town, the poor side is on the East. Something really strange is happening on the East side of the United States. Power outages all over United States on the East side. Carolinas, but all the way right across the Great Lakes down to the East Coast, that services have been spotty for all customers, that there have been widespread power outages in the upstate. And it started around Wednesday night. Why, you might ask? No idea. Got nothing. They won't tell us. That's not enough. Monday, talking about freak weather, we had an anticyclonic tornado. Very, very, very rare. Near Rough, Oklahoma. And it was on the ground for almost 13 miles. So a twister developed about 6 miles northwest of a place called Sulphur, very interesting, and moved northeast. Tornado had been rated an EF1, winds up to 110. Really weird. Really, really weird. So, it was likely wrapped in rain, was not very visible. So, as a matter of fact, it looks like this thing, because most tornadoes, for those who don't know, spin counterclockwise like a dervish. But the tornadoes on Monday were spinning backwards. And at first, while they spin backwards, they are invisible. So you would probably think, I don't know. It's just weather, Tracy. Why are you looking at it like that? Because everything isn't just what it seems. It's not enough, though. Zimmerman. Do you remember him? George Zimmerman has auctioned the gun that killed Trayvon Martin, saying this is an icon of American history. I can't even read it because this guy's talking, and when he talks, I just want to slap everything. I do. You know, Tylenol's, it's come out that a substance inside that drug will alter your ability to empathize with others so you can't feel their pain. I'm starting to think I don't want to feel anyone else's pain right now. I don't. Because damn, I'm having a hard enough time feeling my pain. And that's not enough. Look northwest. So, April marked the 6th anniversary of the Deepwater Horizon tragedy that occurred in the Gulf, you may remember. And a similar tragedy is happening in the Arctic. The administrations all over the world are trying to plan offshore leasing. While the Atlantic has been given a pass from drilling, the Arctic is open to potential future development. If we want to address what is happening on the planet, I don't care if you want to call it climate change or the return of the Anunnaki or Darth Vader. I don't care anymore. I don't care, not caring. But we need to acknowledge that things are changing. That something is opening up and exposing new areas that have never been seen before. And in sensitive areas like the Arctic, with the oldest things on the planet, because it's so cold, or it was, opening this up to fossil fuel development that is killing our Earth is horrific. You know what used to be icy waters are almost ice-free now. In fact, to the astonishment of people, there is nearly a 7,000-mile wide strip. It actually only took 73 days. Something called Cloud 9 was the name of the ship, by the way. And they saw not one piece of ice. This is a very different picture from when this same journey was attempted in the summer of 1994. That summer, ice choked off any passage. There were no potential routes. 13 years, short years, interesting number. Between those two sailing expeditions, thank you, to the north, 40% loss of summer ice in the Arctic Ocean. That's a 40% loss in our northern ice cap. Human activity, guys, not alien, not Illuminati, because the Illuminati does not work on ice boats. The Illuminati does not make their mines. The Illuminati does not build anything. We build it. So the impact on our lovely Earth, the rapid and visible changes, I don't know. Do you think you're... What? It's HARP, Tracy. If I get one more, it's HARP, Tracy. No, it's stupidity. It is politics, it is greed, it is us working for them. Canadian government has no interest in stopping the fires going on right now. None. And what you're not being told about the fires here is there is something else behind the wildfires that are raging in Fort McMurray and other parts of Canada. By the way, out in BC, at least 45 fires right now, right on where they want to drill more mines. Now, I received this email response from friends who live in Alberta after I sent some questions asking about what's happened with the wildfires. Here is a very edited version. They're Canadians. We're passionate people, and we swear a lot. So, it blew me away, because we're not hearing it. There are approximately 10 different sites that are situated out of Fort McMurray. So when people say someone works in Fort Mac, we automatically know they are not right in town. But as one of the many sites up there, most of the sites flew workers home the day after the evacuation so that evacuees couldn't escape to Edmonton or Calgary, south. That they could stay in camps on the sites, which were north, as I was telling you guys. The day after the evacuation, there were families and pets staying in the camps and in other open structures on the site. There literally is only one road in and out of Fort Mac, that is Highway 63. You either drive south or north. South gets you to other towns, eventually, and north takes you to other oil sites. Sites are not towns, so there are no stores. Just work sites with camps for workers to stay in. Luckily, most sites have airports of their own and don't use the one of Fort Mac. So basically, the forest fires in northern Alberta are not uncommon. I put up images of the last one, and yes, I'm going to prove that one was bigger than Texas. Look at the pictures, and this one is bigger than that one. Hello. Okay, so 5 years ago, fires reached 10 feet outside of one of the camps. Luckily, the fire was able to be contained This year has been really dry and hot early. And sometimes there is still snow on the ground this time of year in Canada. There is not now. This fire has been burning for weeks already. And because of the severe winds and it being so dry, that the fire grew huge and went fast. Over 80,000 people evacuated. Not one death. 1,600 structures, mostly homes, were destroyed. All of Alberta knows people living there. As many oil workers become friends with those from Fort Mac, working at site or have been renting rooms from them in town. People from all over Canada fly in, to work there, especially from the East Coast. You know, the fishermen, a lot of them work in the oil mines as well. So we know people who live in Fort Mac. They are safe, but we don't know yet if their homes are safe. As of now, everyone is out of the city. Those that could flee Edmonton or to Edmonton or Calgary south have. But those who have had to flee north are in the camps on various sites or being flown out from site, because most sites have their own airports. The province's premier, especially, and the Prime Minister are being extremely slow in calling this a national emergency. Premier Notley, a month before this, cut the province's firefighting budget by 80%. Now, weeks ago, there were requests for help, extra equipment. They were denied. Our premier is on the climate change bandwagon, big time. Absolutely hates oil sands, even though the oil sands have been funding all of Canada for years and years, and we must understand that. They have. It's killing the land, but it's the reason why most Canadians live so well. Now she and the Prime Minister have been targeting it, making them to be the bad guys of Canada. And the reason for climate change over here. They have been hit with carbon taxes. Farmers now have to have permits in order for workers, including family members, to even work on the farms. Let's take a break. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements Radio, live with Tracey Kennedy. I almost forgot my name. Studio A, and that's Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Trace Elements Radio, and I think Wolf Spirit Radio is simulcasting me today. So, where are we? Alberta. Alberta, who I've told you has been suffering for a long time. It is literally being destroyed. I realize many people hate the oil sands, but realize that to shut those down, our life will change. Contracts have been cancelled Canada-wide. Projects of this nature have been cancelled. We are now getting our oil from Saudi Arabia instead of from here. It won't promote the pipelines east or west, so we can sell land or sell the landlocked oil, although that's where the fires are. But this has cost tons of jobs, and we have to look at that. This is trickling down to businesses as non-essential items are crossed off family lists with no jobs. So technically the job loss and the financial devastation is more than 100,000 also. Our Disney prince, the Prime Minister, redid the unemployment budget to extend it for a few months, but limited it in certain areas, which excluded the people hardest hit in Alberta. He said, you should be glad you weren't hit harder. When people asked him why. And the list goes on. And more insane things are happening because of the Prime Minister and this crazy Premier. You can Google, you can YouTube these things. Don't listen to mainstream media as it's all spun for the cameras. One good resource about the real politics going on in Canada right now, including the fire, is Ezra Levant of the Rebel Media. So search him out and Google and YouTube Fort McMurray fires. Many people in Canada are also actually tweeting and using social media as a tool to say things like, I hope Fort McMurray burns to the ground. If it was natives, we would be doing nothing. It's their fault our climate is changing. It's karma that Fort McMurray is burning. I would like to say officially, shut the fuck up. Oh, sorry. I don't want to say it like that. I'm going to say it another way. If you've seen the pictures that I have posted, you will notice, look, white people helping what's going on. Just like it's people of all races in Canada that are saving the people in the far north by feeding them when your government isn't. We're going to argue about whether Red Cross is going to be matched by the government. Have you forgotten who pays the government? That's your money. So don't give a F word. How much they're paying. They were supposed to work for you. Yes, there's absolutely crap happening. But I think we need to look at what we're doing well and what we're being idiots about. You don't say burn to the ground. These are people. And thank you for sending requests. Ask me to talk about this. And again, Trace Elements Radio. Go to the left side and you can leave me messages. The pictures that are being sent are interesting as well. I would prefer less of the pictures of anatomy, although one that was sent was quite impressive. I didn't know it came in that color. Anyway, so people who had no friends or families had nowhere to flee to. So please look to peace and for the long process of insurance claims and recovery. Second would be the attitudes of our government about this disaster, the attitudes of people about what's going on. Listen, helping out here does not make helping Native people less important. It does not mean we are not looking at Attawapiskat. That was a problem a long time ago. It's a problem that I don't think will be helped if you allow people to live up there in that squalor. And again, more and more people in the far north are committing suicide. But if we look on planet Earth, you will see a trend. This year specifically, look at the numbers and where you live. There is an epidemic of suicides this year, everywhere on this planet. Look into it. The modern world, where we can look up these things, people are killing themselves rather than live here. That says a lot. Now, drop the attitude. We work together, we die together. Just make a frickin' choice. You want to die? Go. I know that's horrible. Sounds horrible. But pointing fingers at each other, it's too late for that crap. It's too late. Way too late. The minute we get a little bit of money or think we have a little bit of power, we, as in people of the earth, act like assholes. We're really good at killing each other. I'm not seeing much else other than the magnificent things that Canadian young people are doing and Canadians of all races are doing quietly, helping. Now, there are huge fires burning at the exact same latitude as Fort Mac, just a province away in BC, at another oil project that are having people evacuated too. Evacuation started yesterday, curiously. Next is the attitude of the idiots. You know, the oil sands. Surprisingly, some of them are clean, technologically advanced places in the world. Some of them are. Many countries use these technologies in their plants because some of them, they're not all end of the world looking. They also have the strictest regulations on operating clean, the best safety regulations in the world. So people like Leonardo DiCaprio and Neil Diamond are saying it's a lie. This whole carbon footprint thing, sorry. Best thing to do is keep asking questions, because we are not seeing the truth here. We never are shown the truth, and that's pretty obvious. They want us fighting each other over and over and over again, and for the most part that works. I guess people want to fight. Or we'd have given it up by now. If one of the religions were right, we'd all be doing that religion. If one group of men were better than another group of men, all of us women would be over there doing them. We have not evacuated you. We have not fled our homeland. So, I think we need to calm the hell down, don't you think? We have to stay with a clear head, do we not? It would be nice. Now, the wonderful things that have happened in Canada, which I did tell you about, people helping each other, is happening. Not getting enough attention, and it's beautiful. It is. Our youth have been kicking ass lately. A Nova Scotia teen is, a matter of fact, an inventor, making a difference, cleaning the water. Simple, easy ways. Rachel Bauer. We have another child. Sorry, I just closed all my things. You know how excited I get. I have a tantrum. We have another one. A Montreal teen makes a discovery, major discovery, in relapsed lymphoma patients. So scientists are closer to understanding why some lymphoma patients relapse. All thanks to a 16-year-old girl. As a matter of fact, our old people are doing well too. Healthiest person on the planet? 96-year-old runner, bodybuilder, public speaker, writer, rower, Canadian. University of Guelph, space technology is actually now looking at ways to help grow year-round. It's already out there. Another Quebec teen discovered ancient Mayan ruins by studying the stars. And then, of course, we have idiots. People from Edmonton disobeyed the fire ban because I guess they didn't think, it applied to them. And crews had to respond to 50 calls in 24 hours. That is what I would like to say is an idiot. And there was a group of idiots because there wasn't just one. So, it gets pretty emotional. What's going on in Canada? It's huge. It's really huge. And obviously our planet is changing. Now remember, the area around Fort McMurray is very prone to wildfires. These conditions, though, that we're seeing guarantee that it will happen. And it seems Mr. Trudeau and Ms. Motley don't care about the actual people of Alberta and indeed Canada, but we do care about each other. We do. And I have an extensive list of references so you can look up what's happening here. In this country at the oil sands. Climate change happening? Yeah. Do we blame and hate each other for this? We could. We absolutely could. But we could do something else too and try not to hate each other for ridiculousness. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. The boreal forest is fragile and sacred and important. Beautiful, magnificent. I would love to save that. Save our trees. I would like to save our people, too. We need both. How are we going to do it? I don't know. But I think we need to talk about what happened. Because the mind control I was telling you about, the ahs, the clicking your heels back together, because there's a pair of magic shoes to wear with your dress. Something in the lightning to transport you faster Then the old ruby slippers. This is a quote from O'Brien. Kathy, Operation Carrier Pigeon. A cryptic death threat given to Kathy as a slave by her handler, Secretary of Defense Cheney, allegedly, to kill her daughter by taking off her daughter's ears. Was then backed up by a hypnotic command based on Wizard of Oz programming. I'll get her, my pretty, your little girl. The programming that is related to the Tin Man produces a monarch slave, which is described as a well-oiled machine by the handlers. These slaves come in male and female, light and dark. There's a reason why black men are being targeted. There's a reason why Prince is in control. Black men are attractive. I don't mean just pretty. Put on a black shirt, go out in the sun. This is the difference. That's why these idiots who are in control want to see men beat the shit out of each other. Fighting, boxing, ripping each other apart because we're so poor. So Prince and the Death Squad. The devil is in control. The wizard, who is usually not the great and powerful Oz, he's Big Gay Al. The goat has to do with fertility, symbolic of the magma opus of alchemy, when one's energies from the Kundalini increase. Spiritual alchemy I'm talking about here. It's a transformation of the human soul into godliness. The logos. The major logos. This is completing our creator gods, Satan, the devil's work. Baphomet. Baphomet first became known when the Knights Templar were tried for blasphemy, homosexuality, devil worship by the Inquisition in the 13th century. It's the Knights Templar, and yes, Hyro, you were right, Templar. We were having a discussion whether it was ER or AR. Absolutely right, AR. The Templars were the ones who were given the authority, because up until then no one had done this, for usury. Everyone knows that's wrong. They charged tax for holding people's money. Now, according to confessions given by members, Baphomet was their idol, the idol of the devil. More so, the Templars were the first big male group, boy band, all boy band. As a matter of fact, they weren't allowed to kiss their own mother or their sister, let alone any other women. So the stuff we've heard about these guys, yeah, true. Now, have you heard of Caligula Scrow? He's believed to have met Adam Weishaupt, professor of philosophy, canon law at the university, who in 1776 founded a sect of the Illuminati that would later teach the world. They called themselves the heirs to the Knights Templar. So Count Cagliostro and Adam Weishaupt. The Count was initiated into the Illuminati where? Frankfurt, Germany, 1781. This is around the time where everything changed on this planet, where they took, although, they had control of Europe pretty much. They had control of the world pretty much. But this is when the Tin Man took revenge. Now, under the authority of the Grand Masters of the Templars. So, those that argue the Illuminati do not worship the devil, you can argue with the wind, because that's what he said they did. Just when you thought you were safe, Prince's last Instagram really didn't sound like a man in any imminent drug or medical crisis. More and more it seems that Prince died alone underneath a freeway overpass in Los Angeles instead of in his castle. All the people surrounding Prince, his music, and millions suddenly have no faces, no names. They want us to believe Prince, a giant in the American music industry for decades, took off into an ocean on a rowboat without a paddle, or took off on the interstate highway on a skateboard. The bottom line is that for those that have possessed, to have loved him, and those, like I believe he sold his soul, I think he did, and then tried to get it back in America, the devil's child, have the same basic rights as anyone else. But Prince was no more protected in his home and his castle than a man living under a freeway. If you believe the corporate mass media, the Prince storyline, then you will fall for anything. And that endangers this planet. Not just the continent, not just the countries, not just the towns, not just where you live, everything. The public has a right to answers, especially in the case of homicide and a possible crime against society. Right now, Prince's death is being wrapped up inside an enigma. This is time to stop crying with doves, whatever that means. Stop praying like it's 1999. Certainly stop partying. Ask and demand answers. Make this system act like it's a democracy versus a secret society and an island for the few. For some reason, only people with flowers have been allowed to approach the gates of Paisley Park because it is now secured. It has always been a residential compound surrounded by heavy metal link fences that are designed to keep people out. April 20th, 2016, the storyline is that Prince's team called Dr. Howard Kornfeld in California and begged his assistants to intervene with Prince in a drug dependence medical crisis in Minnesota. Addiction medicine expert Dr. Stuart Gitlow questioned why Dr. Howard Kornfeld sent his son, Andrew, on a flight to Prince's home in Minnesota rather than calling for emergency help if this was what it was about. The Kornfeld's lawyer, William Mozzie, said that Prince's unidentified representatives told the doctor that Prince was dealing with a grave medical emergency. When they first contacted him the day before Prince's death, Dr. Gitlow says, if a doctor believes there's a medical emergency, he calls an ambulance to get the patient to emergency personnel who can assist this situation. They do not fly. They do not say, okay, wait a minute, call an airplane, drive to the airport, actually wait for a taxi, get on an airplane, and fly. No, medical emergency means you pick up the phone, say, I'm a doctor, make shit happen. They have not and will not reveal who from Prince's team called Dr. Kornfeld, allegedly, on Prince's behalf, because Prince would say, call the doctor, it's a medical emergency, I'm having a crisis. Prince, I'm sure, was not even aware of this alleged call. Neither the doctor nor Andrew spoke or met with Prince before they, guess what, invaded his home. April 21st, 2016, in the morning, Prince sent a very cryptic Instagram message from his home in Paley Park, and he said, just when you thought you were safe. In other words, he had been lured into thinking that he was safe in his castle, and suddenly something changed at Paisley Park that made him believe that he was no longer safe in his home. His Instagram was a cry for help, hoping that someone who knew him was going to know that this was something weird. So, April 21st, 2016, Dr. Kornfeld's son, his son, Andrew, part of the death squad that invaded Prince's secured compound and his home without his knowledge or his consent. Now, I don't know for certain that Prince didn't open the gate and the door to invite him in, and didn't authorize anyone to open the gates to his home to strangers. 100%? I don't know. But April 21st, 2016, 9:43 a.m., Prince was discovered by an unknown, unidentified group of individuals, loosely known as Prince's team, lying in an elevator, unresponsive. One of these unknown people running around Prince's home when he was found dead has been confirmed for certain to have been this guy, Andrew Kornfeld of California. So this is a whole death squad cover-up. Carver County Sheriff's Department again. Now, April 22nd, the day after Prince was found dead, the Carver County Sheriff, Jim Olson, told reporters at a press conference that on Thursday, April 21st, unnamed members of Prince's staff became worried when they couldn't contact him on Thursday morning. They went all over the house to find him unresponsive on the first floor of the house in the elevator. During the press conference, Sheriff Jim Olson noted that Prince was a very private person, that the sheriff encouraged people to respect the singer's privacy, even though he was dead. A dead man no longer possesses a right to privacy. I suppose Sheriff Olson was asking the public not to ask too many questions, especially about Prince's death. If it unnamed people were worried about Prince so much. Why didn't they respect his privacy by calling 911 before invading and trespassing in his home? Now, during the conference, Sheriff Jim Olson concealed and covered up the fact that there were persons and or entities, the death squad, not part of Prince's staff. Andrew Kornfeld, Kornfeld, on the compound, chasing him, then allegedly found him dead. Sheriff Jim Olson concealed and covered up the fact Andrew had illegal drugs concealed in his backpack. Did they intend to drug Prince forcibly, covertly against his will? The Kornfelds are now represented by a high-profile Minnesota white-collar criminal defense attorney. Why do they need a defense attorney if this guy didn't drug Prince? Possibly kill him. Now, they aren't talking. They're certainly not answering any of my questions. I set notes this morning after my said visitation with whatever the hell that thing was. Anyway, Sheriff Jim Olson isn't talking about any evidence that he concealed from the public. The Kornfelds, people of the corn, children of the corn, porn, see? And the illegal drugs that Andrew had. Buprenorphine. The corporate mass media news aren't pushing for answers about the Kornfelds. I have heard no one talk about them. Prince's right to be left alone by trespassers, stranglers, interlopers, killers, maybe? Even if, in fact, he had a serious drug problem or he had a serious medical problem. Right now, as I speak, 2 media agencies, Los Angeles Times, Minnesota Star Tribune, and yes, I have heard that people are saying he weighed 80 pounds and he had AIDS. I don't know. But I'm going to stick to what I know. So anyway, Times and the Star Tribune obtained copies of a county search warrant that identified another medical specialist that was at Prince's home the morning he was found dead. This is just reminding me of how they killed Michael Jackson. Now, Sheriff Olson also withheld the exposure of Dr. Michael T. Schulenberg of North Memorial Medical Center, Ribbonsdale, MN, Minneapolis, was also at Prince's home when he was found dead. Dr. Schulenberg issued the prescriptions that Prince were filling at Walgreens. Dr. Schulenberg said that he had happened to drop by the house to deliver some medical results. He was just dropping by. He showed up, invaded Prince's home with a death squad to cover his tracks and the crack of his ass. I don't know. So Dr. Schulenberg had removed himself from the medical center, and now he's not answering any questions from anyone either. But he was there, and according to CNN, the U.S. Justice Department and the DEA also entered the investigation of Prince's death. Now, on May 10th, 2016, the Carver County Sheriff's Department is backing up, revisiting the crime scene at Paisley Park. It should have been closed off. It was not. It should have been closed off as a crime scene, period. That's what they do. The day Prince was found dead. This is just what happens. It did not happen. So even Bremer Bank shouldn't have been allowed to enter that property. Yes, he was allowed till the federal investigation was completed. This is how things are done. This is not imagination. The search warrant documents obtained by the Times and the Star Tribune are no longer publicly available. The documents have been sealed. And they say those warrants should not have been released in the first instance, according to Nancy Peters at the Hennepin County District Court. Just as in the case of Whitney Houston's murder, the compound's video security system isn't being discussed by anyone. It's as if it didn't exist. But Prince had signs on every wall, every bathroom saying you were being filmed. Now, it's friggamatic. Was he invaded by, I don't know, was it aliens? Was it Angel? Was it the Fluffy Bunny? Buddy had tapes of everything. He was insane about it. Now, so that's a lie. Big ass lie. So, let's look at buprenorphine. Very complex drug. I didn't have a lot of time, but this is one of the many clandestine and covert MK Ultra over-the-rainbow drugs. Its uses, its implications, and its secrets. It takes you over the rainbow. In a semi-synthetic opioid, basically, derivative of thebaine or thebaine. It's a paramorphine, also known as codeine methyl enol ether. So it's an opiate. It's an alkaloid. It is a major constituent of opium. Thebaine is chemically similar to morphine, codeine. It is the poppies. You're going to the poppy fields. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. See, I told you I'd find a way to make this into the Oz story. Now, buprenorphine was first developed as an analgesic, painkiller. Is any member of a group of drugs used to achieve analgesia, relief from pain. It appears that it's gaining some acceptability within medical community for being used to treat anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, and depression. It's also used now as an anti-panic or anti-anxiety agent. It's a medication or other intervention that inhibits anxiety. It inhibits anxiety. It is a pill that makes you not feel bad about what you're about to do as well. Put you in a state where you're usable. It's similar to methadone. It's used in opiate replacement therapy as well as pain management. Now, opiates are found naturally. Poppies, which is psychoactive compounds. They include morphine and codeine and theodine. DIX was an experimental performance enhancer secretly developed by Nazis, 1944, military applications. And I've told you before, it is not new, the drugging of our soldiers. Always done. Always, always, always. Now, the researchers who rediscovered this project was named Wolf Templar. He said that the aim was to use DIX to redefine the limits of human endurance. The formula contained in each tablet was 5 milligrams of oxycodone, synthetic opioid, synthesized from thebaine, 5 milligrams of codeine, 3 milligrams of methamphetamine. Percocet is a acetylene and oxycodone. So acetylene, acetylmycin, how do you say it? Acetaminophen. Anyway, it's a potent pain reliever. It increases the effects of oxycodone. They work together. But buprenorphine could have been used to keep Prince acting normal, as an illusion, to party down like it was 1999 till the time was ripe to liquidate him. On Friday, April 15th, Prince's private plane had to make an emergency landing to hospitalize him. He was treated and discharged within hours. It was widely reported that the emergency had been due to Percocet and OD. A Carver County search warrant revealed that Prince was carried off the plane. He was unresponsive. This is what a bodyguard said. He was treated with Narcan, naloxone, sold under a brand Narcan, among others, is a medication to block effects of opioids. Yes, in overdose too. Now the drug suboxone is a combination of buprenorphine and naloxone. But naloxone is used for a couple things in small doses. And I'm wondering this more and more, and you won't hear it anywhere else, and it's just a question. Naloxone is one of the things that people with MS are using in tiny, tiny amounts. Sometimes you take it twice a day, like 5 milligrams. It's just a could be. The other one, no, you wouldn't. So, buprenorphine takes you up. Naloxone brings you down. At the same time, same area of the brain. But it's about the opiate response. People with MS have very low natural opiates in your body. You don't feel pleasure the same as everyone else does. I'm wondering, because Prince was so fair, if he had MS. I don't know, he seemed control of his body, but he didn't dance as much as he did. And a lot of times he walked with a cane. That could have been his hip, but it just questions. So the more you do, the less you seem to believe we are doing it. You know what I mean? So there's a similar drug used in the mind control that was secretly developed by Mengele at Auschwitz. The drug developed at Auschwitz was used on children experimentally to induce severe pain and torture. The child would black out, fall asleep with Bobby, and become unconscious from pain. Nothing would be happening to them, but they would feel pain. The doctor would inject the drug like an opioid, and it would keep the child from blacking out. Thus the doctor, so that's why they did two at the same time, the doctor would inflict more pain, going far beyond the threshold of human endurance, which in turn would allow the mind of the child to be totally wiped clean, to split, as I was telling you Tuesday, become 2 or 3 or 4, but this one would be the blank table, so that the child would forget their own personal identity, forget how to add, forget how to subtract, forget how to think or carry on a conversation. So, see Gerald Astor, The Last Nazi, The Life and Times of Dr. Mengele, for it's interesting. So, April 16th, the day after he was released from the hospital from supposed or alleged overdose, Prince took to the stage at a dance party like nothing had happened. A combination of opiates, like Nazi secret DIX, could possibly push you beyond the threshold of human pain while you use the suboxone to create a euphoric, a pain relief effect, while at the same time the naloxone would later take you down. So April 20th, around 7 p.m., Prince was spotted at Walgreens for the fourth time that week near Paisley Park, picking up prescriptions believed to have been Percocet. And that seems weird. You got all kinds of money, you go to the store yourself? I don't know. I don't even have all kinds of money. I do not go to the drugstore myself. I call somebody up and say, deliver that shit. So would he? I don't know. Why do you go? Why would you go to the drugstore yourself? You're not sure of the people who work for you? You want to make sure that's the prescription, or you trust that guy? It's weird. You have to admit that's weird. So on Thursday, 21st, Andrew, child of the corn, or Kornfeld, invaded Paisley Park with this drug, buprenorphine. Should be aware that Percocet and buprenorphine both cause breathing to slow down. Combining the two would result in death, or at least serious injury. Both these links are involved in his death. Percocet, I think, from Dr. T. Schulenberg, and this buprenorphine from Andrew Kornfeld. Both of them were at the crime scene the time he was found dead. Percocet and buprenorphine is a Jamestown cocktail of lethal drugs. This is the devil's brew. The devil got his due from Whitney Houston and Bobby Christina Brown with a Jonestown cocktail, the same lethal combination of drugs. Now, corporate mass media is making it seem as though Prince hadn't incorporated or legally organized any of his business affairs, and I call out B&S. Now, according to the sheriff, he had some kind of so-called authorized management team over Prince's affairs before he died. It was a team that had power to call in a doctor without Prince's knowledge or consent, open his gates, unlock the doors to his home, which were privately. As a matter of fact, it looks like, and I have to find my work on this because I'm sure I did it, that he was the only one who could open the gate and open the front door. that he had to do it. But now Prince's sister, Tyka Nelson, who may be drugged. Oh, wow, that was fast. I'll continue on, guys. Thank you for listening today. And hi, everyone. I'm going to go on a little longer. I have some energy and I want to finish this. So, a team, apparently, that without Prince's knowledge or consent, opened his gates, opened the doors to his home. Prince's sister, Tyka Nelson, who may be drugged, stated in a probate court that an emergency existed to appoint a special administrator without notice in Prince's estate. Now, because immediate action and decisions needed to be made to continue ongoing management and supervision of Prince's business interests, what happened to Prince's team then? The Comte Saint-Germain of the old world Illuminati, notorious charlatan, alchemist, many believe to be immortal, but this is again the Wizard of Oz. He was the Grand Master of Freemasonry. He had become an acquaintance of Louis 15th, I think. 15th. King of France. And his mistress, Madame de Pompadour, the Devil's Daughter. Now, Tyka nominated Bremer Trust, National Association on 1100 St. Germain Street, St. Cloud, Minneapolis, Minnesota. So, in fact, Bremer Trust was appointed without notice the special administrator of Prince's estate. In her moving papers, Tyka said Bremer Bank National Association has provided financial services to Prince for a number of years and has knowledge of his personal financial and business affairs. Its affiliate, Bremer Trust National Association, is the best position of any corporate trust company to protect the descendants' assets, pending the appointment of a personal representative. Bremer Trust is a holding company of banks. Tyka Nelson is represented by the law firm of Gray, Plant and Moody at 1010 West St. Germain Street as well, St. Cloud, right next door to Bremer Bank. So do you believe that Bremer went to Tyka and brought their neighbor, Gray, Plant and Moody, along for a ride? Or did Tyka and the law firm bring Bremer along for the ride? To answer these questions will become plain and simple. I beg to question if Bremer Bank Trust had provided Prince with financial and business services, guidance, advice, and support for years. Why didn't they advise Prince to incorporate some or all of his business affairs, or drop a trust, drop a will? Because it seems like Bremer should be held liable for malpractice instead of being put in charge of his financial affairs. They are covering their tracks, and I told you before, when that came out, my story would change. So Prince's music, the devil is now in control. Before his death, Prince had removed all his videos, all of his tracks, his songs, his music from online sharing platforms, from YouTube, then license everything to Jay-Z's subscriber streaming service, Tidal. Tidal, by the way, checkerboard panel, was launched 2014 by a Norwegian-Swedish public company. Aspiro. By the way, their logo looks like 666 to me. I'll show you pictures later. I didn't have time to get it ready. But in the first quarter of 2015, the parent company Aspiro was acquired for about $56 million by Project Panther Limited, owned by Jay-Z. Tidal is a serious global threat. The Illuminati boldly intended to control the music that you hear. Lords of the Air, the music performers that you see, the contents of the songs, open minds of listeners and subscribers. The founding of Aspiro is linked directly to Vodafone Group, F-O-N-E Group, British multinational telecommunications company headquartered London, England. The evolution of Vodafone started in 1982 with the establishment of the Raquel Strategic Radio Limited. Odd name. But it was a subsidiary of Raquel Electronics, UK's largest maker of military radio technology. She says to herself, which formed a joint venture with Millicom called Raquel. Evolved into the present day Vodafone. Vodafone has been accused of covertly sharing its subscriber data with UK intelligence and security organization Government Communications. In fact, Vodafone has been developed in close association and collaboration with the U.S. corporate military intelligence handmaiden General Electric. And for decades, General Electric has worked covertly to advance the cause of the New World Order, global markets, CIA agenda, the Oz programming. Vodafone, Old World, Illuminati, the devil, written all over it. Basically, it was founded by elite circles, knights of the British Empire. Vodafone was founded by Sir Ernest Harrison, OBE, the most excellent order of the British Empire, is the order of chivalry of British constitutional monarchy. Sir Jerry Went, CBC, Commander of the Order of the British Empire, and Lord Arnold Weinstock, Baron Weinstock of General Electric. Lord Weinstock was knighted 1970. He became an honorary bencher of Gray's Inn since 82. He became commander of the Ordine al Merito, so Order of Knighthood, of Italy, 1991. Officer of the Legion of Honor of France, 1992. You should keep a future reference to Gray's Inn of Great Britain. The Honourable Society of Gray's Inn, known as Gray's Inn, goes back to the 18th century, Queen Elizabeth I and William Shakespeare. The inn was home to Sir Francis Bacon, New Atlantis, and the African humid bondage in America. Gray's Inn was the inner temple of the Knights Templar. Everything Jay-Z touches clandestinely traces back and support the hidden agenda of the Templars, satanic dragon lords, the bloodlines, the Red Queens of the old Britain, and the devil, who is the prince. The prince owns the world. That's what the Bible says. So, Prince and the devil's banker. There isn't much useful background on Otto Bremer, that founded Bremer Bank and Bremer Trust, National Association. Bremer, son of a wealthy and influential banker, born in 1867, Sias, Duchy of Brunswick, Germany. Otto migrated to America, 19th century, started buying up banks in Wisconsin and South Dakota and Minnesota. During the Great Depression, from 29 to the 30s, Bremer, often showing up with satchels of cash, saved local banks from failing and then bought them. In the 30s, he had stock in 55 different banks. Bremer served as the treasurer of the city of St. Paul for 10 years, was an elite inside court or factor advisor to presidents Woodrow Wilson and Franklin D. Roosevelt. He was subsequently appointed by Roosevelt to manage Federal Home Owners Loan Corporation of Minnesota. Otto had 3 brothers, Charles E., Carl, and William. They arrived in America first. It was William that we learn where all Otto's money came from, his true mission, his agenda in the States. William founded the city of Bremerton or Bremerton. It's anyway home to the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard and the Bremerton Annex of Naval Base Kitsap. In the late 19th century, William brought up land around, bought it all up around Puget Sound in Oregon, then sold it to the U.S. Navy for huge money. He made all kinds of profit. He's a Ferengi. So the brewers were actually foreign lender disciples, banking agents of Jacobson Institute in Season, Duchy of Brunswick, Germany. Jacobson Institute, founded by Israel Jacobson, a German financier, pioneer of the Reform Judaism, relief and freedom from Orthodox Judaism, the kind who didn't like all of the Jewish laws. Anyway, so Jacobson was a man that the Rothschilds, super rich, emulated, followed his wicked business model, his agenda for the control of governments. The Rothschilds followed this guy, his family. Israel Jacobson was the court Jew that I've told you about for the Illuminati, for Freemasonry. The traditional court Jew, or factor, they were called factors, was a Jewish banker who handled the finances of or lent money to the houses of old European royalty, nobility. He is a Freemason. They were neither Catholic, nor Christian, nor Jewish. They were a third thing. In return for the services, these court Jews gained social privileges, power, control, including noble status. Jacob's son, often referred to as Jacobim, son of Israel. Jacob's son had served as a financial agent of a German Freemason Grand Master and a Lumitus, Duke of Brunswick. Ferdinand, Duke of Brunswick. Napoleon. The Frankish Sabbatine, Asiatic Brethren. So anyway, scary. They call him the Black Duke. So anyway, the Dukes of Brunswick were members of the Illuminati and the Grand Masters of German Freemasonry. Is it driving you nuts? Anyway, I'll skip ahead. This is basically all the houses of European royalty and nobility. It was this guy. These people that were in charge. Absolutely. Now, the Duke of Brunswick wrote a letter recommending the dissolution of an entire Freemason order due to the fact it had been infiltrated and been manipulated by an occult order. I have been convicted that we, the order, the brethren, have come under the power of some very evil occult order, profoundly versed in science, in the occult, and otherwise. Though not infallible, their methods being black magic, that is to say, they have electromagnetic power. This is his words. Hypnotism, like I spoke of Tuesday. They have the power of suggestion, like I spoke of Tuesday. We are convinced that the order is being controlled by the Sun Order, after the nature of the Illuminati, not by that order itself. We see our edifice crumbling, covering the ground with ruins. We see the destruction that our hands no longer arrest. A great sect arose, which, taking its motto, the good and the happiness of man, worked in darkness of the conspiracy to make the happiness of humanity a prey for itself. This sect is known to everyone. Its brothers are known no less than its name. It is they who have undermined the foundations of the order to the point of complete overthrow. It is by them that all humanity has been poisoned, led astray for several generations. Now remember, this was written in 1794. I'll continue. It began casting odium on religion. Their masters had nothing less in view than thrones of the earth, the governments of the nations, and was directed by their nocturnal clubs. The misuse of our order has produced all the political and moral troubles which the world is filled with today. We must from this moment dissolve the old order, written by Duke of Brunswick, Grand Master of German Freemasonry, 1794. The Illuminati, just 18 years after its official formation, so powerful and influential that its infiltration into Masonry caused the Duke of Brunswick to try to dissolve the entire thing. Bremer Trust, Bremer Brothers of Germany, were the secret financial arms and agents of this old world occult, Illuminati, Freemasonry. The brothers had been sent to America to buy and secure secret influence way before any Rockefellers or that nonsense. They came first. They came to take power of the government, take control of all the banking, all the financial industry, the satanic houses of old European royalty and nobility. It's been widely reported that Bremer Trust immediately went into Prince's home, drilled open his basement walk-in vault that he had entrusted the combination with to no one. No one had that. Naturally, it is a secret that they removed, concealed, or destroyed. With Bremer going into Prince's vault, because he called it the vault, without an independent auditor, they will make sure that no operative wills, trusts, papers, legal instruments will be exposed to the public ever. Their plans to control all of Prince's estate affairs have been done with this. Now, Prince's life. We will talk about this part next week. But let me tell you, we know who did this. It's absolutely true. Okay, we'll talk to you soon, everybody, and thanks for hanging out a little